Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Karger. I am a special correspondent for IMDb. Very happy to be here to host this Outfest Outfronts Actors Panel, sponsored by IMDb Pro. Joining me are Vico Ortiz from Our Flag Means Death, Javicia Leslie from Batwoman, Brandon Scott Jones from Ghosts and the Other Two, and Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows. So great to see all of you.
So great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for having us.
So fabulous.
People who are tuning into this event might know one or a few of you better than the others. So what I want to start by doing is just have all of you kind of go around, say who you are, tell us your pronouns, and tell us a little bit about the character, or in Brandon's case, characters that you play and how they are really relevant to kind of an LGBTQIA plus population. So Vico, let's start with you.
What's up? I'm Vico Ortiz. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, en español, ella, le. And I play Jim on Our Flag Means Death. I am a Latina, Boricua, Caribbean, non-binary human being, and I get to play Jim, who is also a non-binary pirate, which is really dope. I guess that really answers all of the questions. It's really amazing to see a show that is so open to telling the story and accept Jim as who they are in this fun crew.
Javicia, how about you?
I'm Javicia Leslie, she, her. I am a actress, writer, director, producer. Right now, I play Ryan Wilder on the television show Batwoman, who is Batwoman. And Ryan is our first Black lesbian superhero on a television show as a title character, and she's super badass.
Harvey?
Oh, hi, I'm Harvey Guillen, and pronouns are he, him. I play Guillermo de la Cruz in FX, What We Do in the Shadows, a show that basically is pretty much everyone queer. The vampires are all queer, and they live life to the fullest and unapologetic, and something to aspire to is if we could all just do that and live our lives and no one judge. It's really inspiring to be in a show like that has so many people and so many queer kids who come up to me and say they've never seen themselves represented on television, especially being goth, being plus size, being Latine. All these check marks to something that has never been done before. So I'm really proud of being on that show.
Brandon, how about you?
Hi, I'm Brandon Scott Jones, and I play Curtis on HBO Max's The Other Two, and I play Isaac on CBS's Ghosts. And let's see, my pronouns are he, him, and yeah, it's been really, really fun to get to explore playing queer character on two different shows, especially, since, growing up, I didn't see a ton of them, and I get to do it on two different ones, which is really cool. And I think I get to do it in two different ways, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Whereas Curtis is somebody who is, trying to be he's entertainment industry adjacent at this point, and with his best friendship with Carrie, played by Drew Tarver, they get to sort of explore what it means to be a queer performer in today's age, which I think is fun. And it's also one of my favorite things too, is that we get to show like queer friendship. It's not like a will they, won't they. It's sort of like, these two are just like best friends. And so we don't have to, that is also part of our world. And then with Isaac on Ghosts, it's really, fun to play a founding father era person who's queer, because we mythologize those people so much from that time period. And it really, especially everything, if you grew up in this country and you're taught about the foundation of America, it is really all about, how great these people were, but it ignores a really huge, a dark portion that formed this country as well. And so I think to get to subvert that and play like a different version of classic masculinity is really fun. And also to have like a coming out story as an older person.
Absolutely. You don't see that often.
What if I used up all the time on the panel just responding to that question?
It was great seeing you all. No, we have plenty more time, Brandon. No, you have a lot more to say. You're not going anywhere. Harvey, you kind of alluded to this, but yes, there is this constant, consistent presence of queerness on What We Do in the Shadows. What do you love the most about that, and how do you think Guillermo kind of fits into that whole theme?
Well, I mean, the thing I love about, how that fits into the show is that the vampires have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And you live a different life when you have no fear. When you have no fear of prosecution or persecution or of being, the old question of like, who's being chased out of the village, with torches, it's the monster. But if you really look around, it's like, who's the real monster? It's the people chasing them down the street, or is it the so-called thing that's different? And so what I love about the show is that they really kind of dive in and they never apologize. The writers they don't tiptoe around the storylines where like if two of the male vampires finish each other off because they just felt like it's not a question like, oh my gosh, are they going to be together? It's like, it's just living their life to the fullest and whatever their heart's desire, like I feel like some of the vampires are pan and they go off energy and some of them are bisexual. And it's really just for my character being the only human on the show and the trajectory of where he's going, there's definitely the question there of like, what's going on there? And we've yet to see him ask himself that question. And I think that the time is coming where eventually everything bubbles and you have to ask yourself that question. You have to be honest with yourself. And I'm really excited for that to come up, in the future. So I'm so excited for the storyline with Guillermo.
So yeah, we definitely saw some hints of romantic longing in Guillermo recently. How do you think that might go forward and be explored in the future?
Well, it's funny because I always say I play Guillermo like he's walking a tightrope, where like he's like, and then it's like you can't give too much of one side because then it's completely done and it's like, yeah, see, exactly. And so when I look at back like all the fan art that the fans make and like they romanticize this relationship with Nandor, the homoerotic art that they made and make public on Twitter, the storylines that they write, and their like fan fiction that they write, and then people are like, I'm losing my mind, I just need them to finally, and then it's like, but that's the thing, it's like that slow burn, it's like slow, will they, won't they, will they, won't they, and just going back to like what Brandon was saying, like the relationship that could also happen with two people who might happen to be queer, and maybe they don't end up going to bed together. They don't always do, gays and queer people don't always just end up going to bed together, you guys. So I like the idea that we leave that up in the air and we never cross one way or the other. We don't lean too much to one side. It's pretty much in the middle of like, this can go, I'm confused, I am intrigued, and I'm tuning in every week.
And one thing that you and Javicia certainly have in common is this idea of playing a queer action hero, not something we've seen very often at all. How meaningful is that to you?
I mean, it's super cool just to be, season 2, we started with the action stuff. They don't tell us a lot ahead of time. I mean, season 1, we weren't even allowed to see the scripts because the documentary film was shot, or mockumentary film was shot, where the director and the writers knew where the story was going. The actors did not. They showed up to set every day and they're like, and Taika was like, all right, so you're going to go to the store and you have to get out the door, but don't forget your coat. And that's it. Like, like something where it was just, that was the direction. The actors were like, okay. And they would like sprinkle maybe like, hey, why don't you say this word? like just to get the ball rolling. And then in season 1, it was kind of chaotic because again, I'm human and the rest of the vampires, their storylines would wrap up every episode. Like they can't figure out the internet, or they can't, how do you pay for groceries at the market? You throw old coins. So they wrap their stories up in 22 minutes. With Guillermo, the slow burn of him, I was a little bit like, so where are we going with him? It's like, oh, we can't tell you. And it's like, well, I just would like to know because I need to, and then we shoot out of order. So in one day we shoot episode 102 in the morning and 105 by lunch and a piece of 109 by dinner. And for me, I like my first year, I almost went insane. I was like, wait, what's happening? It's like, okay, Javi, gonna get in the car, and you did, right? You did, you step on it, and it's like, what happened in 108? And they're like, we can't tell you, and it's like, you can't tell me, and it's like, and he's like, where did Guillermo get a car? When did he get a action? And you're like, and then why is there blood everywhere? Action, Harvey, you're scared. I am scared. I'm terrified. I don't know what's happening, And so for season 1, I always say when you look at my facial expressions, it's not me acting. It's just me terrified that I don't know what's happening with my character because I'm like, and he didn't have a lot of lines in the first season. And then in season 2, we met with the stunt coordinator, and they're like, hey, they just asked a question about episode 1 or 201. Can you do a little bit of movement? And I was like, yes, I took ballet. So I think I know how to move. And they're like, no, we're talking about stunt work. And I was like, yeah, no, that's what I meant. I meant that too. I meant stunt work. And they're like, okay, can you like throw a punch? I was like, yeah. Can you do a little bit of a kick? Yeah. Can you jump out of a 3rd-story window? What? And they're like, yeah, can you do it? And I was like, yeah, yes, because that's what an actor does. They do their own stunts. And I jumped out of a 3rd-story window. I did all my own stunts for season 2. And the first episode we did was with Haley Joel Osment. And even he was like a trooper. Like, he had to jump in a big like ice water lake and like all this stuff that I was like, what is happening? And I was like, wait, so what's happening? It's like, so now because we found out Van Helsing is in your blood, you actually have this natural ability to kick ass. And I was like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. And they're like, no, it's going to go deep. And so we're talking like hours of like stunt training and rolling and you know, with swords and wooden stakes and all that, which you don't get to do usually, especially as an actor of size. You don't get to do in Hollywood a lot. You know, people put you in a box and they judge you automatically. And when you walk into an audition, they're like, yeah, the guy next door. Yeah, that's you. And it's like, but I can also like dance and I can also do stunts. They're like, no, you're the guy next door. You're the guy next door. So it was nice to break out of that, what people's perception was of this like quiet and, you know, timid character that was submissive. And so to see that side of him, which shows, if you notice, Guillermo's always different when he leaves the house. Inside the house, he's very quiet and he's submissive to the vampires because he's afraid. He's afraid that he's going to upset them and he's going to get another 10 years of servitude. Because whenever they get mad at him, they're like, that's it, you didn't do the laundry right, another 10 years. Imagine living with that threat, like that you just don't want to fuck up, to mess up, that you just completely are on pins and needles all the time. So Guillermo in the house, his voice is softer, it's quieter. He doesn't want to upset anyone. And when he's outside the home, he actually has a little more volume. When he hangs out with the mosquito hunters, he has a little more confidence. He puts himself a little bit together differently. He like wears a different kind of like coat. He's 2 different people. The work Guillermo that doesn't want to get in trouble and wants to get promoted, which a lot of people can relate to. People go to work and it's like, I don't need to be friends with work friends. You know what I mean? Like they just go to work, they do their job, and they go home and have family and friends. So he's trying to separate those worlds. And for him, it's starting to collide. The worlds are starting to come together, and it's terrifying because they found out that he is a descendant of Van Helsing. And he's been living under their noses for the last 12 years. It's in his name, and they never bothered to memorize his name. His name's Guillermo de la Cruz, of the cross in Spanish. And they never bothered to even learn the name of this guy. He's been living as a threat in their home for 12 years, and now they have no one to blame but themselves.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Okay, here's a question for all of you to take one by one. I want to know maybe a queer TV moment that you saw as a younger person that was very meaningful to you. I'm about 10, 15 years older than all of you. So for me, it was kind of the cliched answer of Will and Grace, and seeing that Will character on Will and Grace, that was very important to me and eye-opening. So Brandon, what would be something that sticks out for you?
Oh God, a queer character. The first one that like popped into my brain was Christian from Clueless. When I saw it, I mean, it's not necessarily like how front and center he was, but just it was almost like the first time I was ever like introduced to that being a possibility of somebody who is younger, if that makes sense. And the first time I watched it, like that was like one of my favorite movies. I remember I like fell in like, I was like, why do I love this guy so much? And then it was like, oh wait, duh. And he was so funny and so just charming, and their relationship was really, really, really great. And so I would say like that to me is the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to like a queer character that I remember making, making an impact on me. And the other thing is like, this isn't a queer character, but I feel like she has a queer energy, is Rizzo from Grease. And I would say that she is just like that toughness, like the worst thing I could do is cry in front of you. I think I really I remember as a child, just like watching that and being like, that is who I am, I think. And so, those are the two that just popped into my brain, but I'm sure like as everybody's answering, I'll be like, no, I meant to say this,
Vico, how about you?
Wow. One of the most touching moments I've had while watching a show was One Day at a Time. the Elena episode where Abuelita makes her quinceañera suit. That, I mean, I was bawling my eyes out. I mean, watching that show in general, having this queer kid in the family and be accepted by the mom, the abuelita, you know, everybody, and having that moment. I mean, there was a little bit of that like toss up with whether abuelita or no was going to be accepting of her. And then at the end with that bit, I was like, wow, I wish I would have had this when I was younger, because this is, I mean, One Day at a Time is only a few years ago. It's not been that long. It's been really rare for me to see like Latina queer characters in TV. I mean, I'm sure Harvey, I mean, we're all kind of being like, where are the queer Latina people out here? And it's, and seeing that moment on TV and for everyone to be on board with it was so beautiful. And I wish when I was a teenager and I was going through that time in my life, I've also been kind of like, oh, I kind of want to wear a suit for my quinceañera and like have that be like, it's on TV. I have proof that I'm not going crazy. So that has been one of the most touching moments for me.
Okay, Javicia, same question.
I can talk based off of more recently. My memory's shot. We have to learn so many lines on screen. But a character or a show, honestly, that truly wowed me in its representation, obviously, was Pose. I remember the first time I saw that, and I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Maryland, and a lot of those shows happened in Baltimore. So I had already heard about the shows. I had already seen videos from people that had went to the shows, and the videos would show up on YouTube, and I thought they were all so cool. But then to be able to watch everything that comes with it, everything behind the scenes, to learn the stories of specifically our trans community in the 80s, it was so powerful. The actors were so amazing. The writing was so amazing. So that was a show for me personally, that especially specifically about a community that I didn't get a chance to really get to know about until more recent years. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with those characters so much.
How about you, Harvey?
I mean, my first introduction to, like, again, you know, as Vico was saying, like, you were looking for that Latina, you know, queer representation on TV. And for me, unfortunately, it was always in a negative light. It was always the hairstylist at a sketch on Sábado Gigante, or something that was like, you know, really like, it was just upsetting to watch, and then to watch people laugh and at that, you know, character, because it was like, oh, does that mean that we don't have a place in TV? Because it was the butt of the jokes, you know? And it was always done by a straight man, and it was always done like over the top, flamboyant, to like fixing the hair, you know. And I was always like, is that what it means to be queer? Is that what it means to be queer? And that's how society sees you if you're queer. And so it was a little bit disheartening for me. But then as the years went by, I was actually doing a show and revisited an old favorite, an old classic that people had always recommended, which was My So-Called Life, and with Wilson Cruz. And I met him actually, and I was blown away just by this man who had basically paved the way for, like, you know, Latina queer actors. He was like the first to be, you know, an openly queer character on television, basically. And now last night was awarded, you know, at GLAAD for his Lifetime Achievement. And so it was just like, and to meet him and to hear him say that he's watched my work, and like this, to tell him that he inspired my work, it was just like full circle. And that's what I think that all those like Saturday nights of watching the horrible representation of queer people was justified now by like brushing it away and being like, that's not who we are. That's not who we are. And we are slowly erasing that, and not erasing it, but we're slowly reconstructing what that is and how you see us. And we will not be seen a certain way because you think it's okay to talk about us a certain way. And I take pride in being a small part in that movement, you know.
Wilson Cruz is such a good example. I was auditioning for something I remember it was like one of the most prepared auditions I've ever been. He walked into the waiting room and my heart started pounding so much, because I mean, it's so unfair to do that to somebody, be like, you mean so much to me. But then I like was so flustered. I like tanked that audition, but it was worth it. You know? Oh my God, Wilson Cruz. And I saw him in Tick, Tick, Boom, in a national tour of Tick, Tick, Boom. He was so good.
And he's a great guy, a really great guy. All right, Vico, let's focus on you for a couple minutes here. Obviously, you even said this, there's never been a character like Jim ever that we've ever seen in any form of media. Do you feel like they were totally fleshed out on the page, fully formed, or did you feel like you had to flesh them out a little bit even more on the set once you were on the set of Our Flag Meets Death?
Honestly, what I brought to Jim was mostly my experience as a drag king and as someone who's Spanish as their first language. I was really fortunate to already have 3 writers in the room who were non-binary. So I had the character backed up from the get-go. I didn't really have to worry about having to, I really just came in and like saw the character and I was like, this is me. All I have to do is to make sure that the way that I am portraying Jim is someone who is Jim, whether they have the beard or not. I wanted to make sure that the people understood that the beard does not make them more of a man and no beard makes them more of a woman. It's just the same person regardless. And the only thing that changes is how people perceive them and how they behave around them when that changes, not the person itself. And what I really brought into I started to play. I think that that's the beauty of it, right? When I know I'm being taken care of and I'm in a safe space where I can play, I start finding more nuanced moments and I'm not so worried about educating, which is such weight that was taken off of me in that moment. And I was able to find bits where I was able to add more Spanish to it, have little bits and moments with Oluwande, who's the one that starts off with like friends and ends up developing more into something more romantic. And finding bits with him, finding bits with Nana, finding bits with the rest of the crew, and not being so worried about having to be, oh, actually, this is not really, oh, can we check on this writing thing? Oh, can we do this? It was like I was able to just be and exist and explore the character as someone who's Latina, whose first language is Spanish and gets to speak English in the show. So truly, this goes to show how important it is to have non-binary trans people in the writer's room. And not just, this is the writer's room. I would definitely want directors, producers, showrunners, lighting designers, more, everybody all over the place. But it really was so crucial to have 3 people, because normally it's like, oh, we'll have 1 writer and then the 1 actor and then we did it. It's like the fact that I had 3 people backing me up in the writer's room, that the second I read the character, read the show, I was like, oh, I'm being taken care of. I feel safe in this place. And I was able to play and not be worried about that. And David Jenkins and Taika both are so open and so fun to be around. And they really created a space for me to just be and exist and play. So yeah.
Obviously part of the appeal of the show is similar to what we do in the shadows, the Taika connection there, is that it turns the world of its genre completely upside down, right? So the fact that you're adding kind of this concept of queerness to the pirate genre is so interesting. What have you found the reaction has been to that concept?
I think what's interesting for me, it's that if anything, I don't know if we're adding the concept of queerness with pirates, but we're just like showing that as something that potentially has always been. When I was looking into the history of pirates, I was noticing this pattern. Like, there's a lot of queerness into piracy, right? These are people who were outcast, who flee very constrictive structures and expectations of who you are as a person. And then people were like, F that. I'm gonna go and have my own ship and have my own democracy and my own crew of people who love me and accept me. And I'm obviously romanticizing it. Of course, there was violence. But having this show that has queer pirates, really, it's not that we're adding queerness to piracy, we're just being like, actually, no, pirates were pretty gay. And we've always known, but we always were like, oh no, maybe we'll make them more like macho and all that stuff. And it's like, no, you're showing this history that has been, I don't know, forgotten, but maybe just like shifted so that we don't see that, right? And showcasing masculinity in a way that's so beautiful as well. Something about the show is that not only is my character someone that a lot of people feel validated and seen by, but they feel seen by so many other characters, whether they're pansexual, bisexual, asexual, aromantic, polyamorous, neurodivergent. There are so many characters in the show that a lot of people feel seen and validated by. And then it goes to show that history has always been really, really queer, but obviously it's been written by people who don't want to showcase that, don't want to have that be seen. And as I go back into research, right, I'm seeing a lot of trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people that have always been there, but they don't want to mention them. So this show is kind of like we're just gonna show y'all that history is pretty gay, and we've just been avoiding it because structures and capitalism and patriarchy and systems. But it's like, F that. We've all been a little bit gay since the beginning, or we've always been gay, but we've been forced into, pushing this like agenda of like structure and like the being cis and hetero, and that's the only way to go. It's like, no, we've always been fluid. So yeah, that's kind of, I love the show. And it's also, it never loses the humor, which I think is something so beautiful to see, that it's so funny and so heartwarming, and you don't expect that. You're like, oh, it's going to be a silly, funny pirate show. And then you're like, my heart, everything is happening. I feel touched. I feel seen. I feel taken care of. And all of a sudden I'm in love with all these pirates.
Right. It's great. Okay, Javicia, now I want to focus on you for a little bit. And this is a bit of a bittersweet moment because, as people out there probably who are watching this know, it has been announced that Batwoman is not coming back. Have you already kind of reflected on the impact of this character and the fact that you played her?
So I'm an actor, and I don't ever want to be one character for a very long time, no matter what the character, who the character is. That's not what I signed up for. I signed up to play so many different lives, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to do next. Like, it's so exciting. However, what made me sad, and I wouldn't even say sad because I wasn't sad at all. What made me cry, because I cried, was hearing the impact, hearing the fans tell me how it made them braver, how it made them feel seen, how it made them feel worthy. Like to see that character on television, it hadn't been done before, and it shows. And not that race matters, as in, I think any race can identify with Ryan because she is so many things. But for a Black lesbian girl to see herself as a superhero and to have a romantic love with another Black lesbian woman on television, it has not been done. And I can only imagine how that rocked so many people's lives to see that. How people whose parents may have made them feel like they're weird or what they do isn't right. You can say, well, Mom, look. You can say, Dad, look, Grandma, look, Grandpa. She's a superhero, like Ryan's a superhero and she's gay and Black. And to be a part of that right there all of it's worth it regardless, but that really made it worth it. And I just look forward to telling more stories like that. It has not ended. And another thing, and this is what I said in my goodbye little message to our show, is that it's been done now. Her story cannot be changed. At the end of the day, Ryan Wilder has existed. She is now like in the fabric of the Bat family. She has her own comic. She has her this, that. She is there. Her relationship, none of that can be changed. And I think that right there is magnificent. And I think that right there is like, this is what we do it for.
When you think back to everything that you did on this show, is there a favorite episode or a favorite scene that you had?
Yeah, so my favorite episode, I love horror movies, and we did an episode where we're all kind of like stranded in this in this cabin. So also I'm a huge comic book fan. I grew up reading comic books, and also I was a huge Batman fan. So this season we got to play a lot more with the Batman villains. And so we played with Poison Ivy. And so this episode, Poison Ivy is coming after Ryan or the Bat Team. And also she's pretty much has taken over Mary. And we all kind of end up being chased by her vines into this like old rickety cabin in the middle of the woods. And it's kind of like a cabin in the woods episode. And it's so fun. It's scary. It's intense. It's Ryan's first kiss with Sophie in the bat suit as well. So it's just like all of these different layers that make me love the episode. And it's so well written.
You know, when you play a role that's as iconic as Batwoman, I feel like this performance is going to stay with you throughout the rest of your career. You're always going to be Batwoman to a lot of people. How do you feel about that?
I don't mind always being someone's Batwoman. I mean, how could that ever be a bad thing? You know, at the end of the day, Christian Bale could be a million things, but he's Batman to me. And there's going to be other people that I can probably list that no matter what, this is who you are to me, you know? But my hope is that I continue to get super badass roles so that they can say, hey, she's my Tomb Raider. Hey, she's my Storm. Hey, she's my this, she's my that. Like, let's just keep this going. I don't mind being someone's one specific thing, but I want more things. And I look forward to hearing that I'm someone else's next thing that I want to be.
Okay, here's another group question. I want to know if we're at such an interesting point because I feel like, you know, in some ways there's been all of this progress. I just saw Josie Toda in the People magazine Beautiful Women issue with no mention of the fact that she's trans, which I thought was really cool. At the same time, our community is being used as a pawn in a political culture war, and there's so much going on that is very frustrating. I want to know from all of you, what do you all feel like is the biggest hurdle to the continued progress of representation, but also progress as far as LGBTQ plus performers in the entertainment industry? So Harvey, why don't you kick that off?
I mean, I feel like we've come a long way, but we have so far to go. I feel that I always say a feather on one of our hats is a feather on all our hats. You know, so an accolade for one of our fellow queer performers who opens a door, who crosses a threshold, is a victory for all of us, because we're all united and we're all moving towards the same goal. So when they try to divide us and separate us, and sometimes I feel like even the queer community does that in its own, you know, the division, like with the labels and with the bears and the twinks and no femmes, you know, like, and then when you do that to yourself, when already the world is like trying to separate us and divide and conquer, sometimes it's hard to like be like, hey guys, focus, you know, let's focus on the final. But I think that as performers, it's important to like know when to say no to something, and not to amplify or to feed into a stereotype. And I know that we all want to work and we all want to like do good work, but then sometimes it's upsetting because you see someone who is cast as a queer character, who's cis, who's, you know, and you're like, what, you couldn't find someone that could, did you? No, we tried, but you know. And it's like, I don't know if that's true, because you're telling me that you went through a whole Rolodex of queer performers and you couldn't find one that could do that character. We tried. And it's like, you gotta try harder. I think we need to try harder. If you're coming short when it comes to talent in the queer community, then I don't think you're looking, because we ooze talent, and our community is the entertainment industry. It is the foundation of like how gay is acting, you know, how gay is entertainment, musicals, dancing, poetry. Like I think we have our idea of like what performing entertainment is. We created it, you know, it's just like this has been in our genes forever. And so it's kind of funny to get to a place where the industry says, well, you know, we tried and we ended up going, and it's like, I don't think you're trying. So my whole thing is we need to try harder. Right. And we need to try harder. And I think if everyone just admits to giving into that, trying a little bit harder, I think we just we'll move forward a little bit faster.
Javicia, what about you?
I think that one of the biggest obstacles is that, art just depicts reality. And in reality, we think we can control who people love and how people identify themselves, or what people choose to do with their bodies. And we're just in a space right now where it just feels, I agree, it feels like we are taking one step forward and two steps backwards. Sometimes I'm looking at the news. I don't watch the news, but sometimes I'm looking at maybe an article that comes across my phone, and I just cannot believe what we're talking about right now. I cannot believe this is a subject. I cannot believe this is in court. I cannot believe this is what politics are talking about. What the heck do you have to do with who I love? What the heck do you have to do with what I choose to do with my body? No one can say, sorry, this is sensitive, but like no one can say, it's so easy to judge someone when you're not in their shoes, And I think that unfortunately, because our reality is like that, it does start to creep into our art, into our programming. I think that, it's exactly what it is. It's programming, right? And so to a certain extent, I do think that there's this battle that we may not know about as consumers, where the politics are trying to change what content is coming out, and they're protesting against it because they're looking at it as programming. Yeah, well, your programming is outdated. Your programming is racist. Your programming is homophobic. Your programming is a lot of things that I think that our generation, and not even just our generation, just because I know people that are, in the older generations that are truly like over this shit. And so that's why it feels like we're taking one step forward and two steps backwards. But I feel the shift happening. I feel the change happening. I feel like it's going to start with obviously hiring different hiring diverse executives. It's not just about who's on screen. That's 5% of the issue, because there's millions of people in line waiting for a role that is diverse. It's about who's being hired as the head of these studios, and who's being hired in a writing room, and who's being hired as the content creators and show creators. And even when it comes to like on set, like that energy makes a difference. Not that, I love my production crew here in Vancouver. They have done an amazing job with our show, and they honestly have been the nicest crew I've ever worked with in my life. But I'm one of the few Black people when we show up on set outside of my cast. And that's a thing, So things have to change, things have to shift, because right now, what I see happening, it does not reflect what our society looks like. We live in a very diverse society. So our shows should reflect that diversity, and our higher ups should reflect that diversity.
Okay. Brandon, how about you? Same question.
A couple of things kind of come to my mind. I agree with what Harvey was saying, and what Vico was saying earlier too, is about how queer history already existed, right? And that these stories have been around for centuries. And so just sort of like to add to the conversation, not to say that this is something different, but is to say that like, I think it comes down to business and money. And I think we see a lot of times that companies that are producing like the largest entertainment are also supporting things that are anti-LGBTQIA, and it's really, 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 really frustrating. And I think that's probably true throughout a lot of different things as well, where you follow that money and you're like, holy shit, this is all about a bottom line for a lot of people. And I think what we need to do is we just need to keep supporting, like Harvey was saying, like one accolade is good for everyone, right? Where we just keep supporting, we say, these are stories that are universal. These are stories that need to be told, not because it's something that like somebody needs to hear, because I think people react weird when they're like, stop shoving it down my throat. I'm like, we've never been doing that. We're just trying to show a goddamn coming out story. We're trying to show something because these are things that really happen. But we start supporting these things and we start lifting them up. Like we have a movie coming out like but like the Community as a movie come out, like Fire Island coming out, you know, it's like, I want that to do well, because I know that there is going to be people who have no idea about that world that are going to find something in it that they're going to recognize. And we stop putting it in these like niche little areas, right? And so I think that to me, it's basically about teaching the people who are these sort of like gatekeepers in terms of like the entertainment community, that these are financially viable stories, and that ultimately the more you put out, the more you'll get back, if that makes sense. And the other thing I just want to say is I just did this movie senior year with like a lot of younger cast members, and I was really touched and really, really, really inspired by the way they move through the world and the way that they approach this industry through their own queerness and through their own just acceptance of each other in a way that maybe in my generation I didn't feel. I don't know if anybody else on this panel kind of feels that way, but all that to say, if I've made any sense at all, is just I'm also hopeful for the future for this next generation coming up. And I think the more we can do to keep plowing the way for them, to make room and let these people know that their stories are going to be worth it, I think that's the best. Does that make sense? Did any of that make sense? I hope it did. I'm like, what if it like suddenly I'm like Republican now? It's all about money.
I was gonna I'm Puerto Rico, and I'm like, English is like, I'm completely forgotten, but I'm gonna use what you said about money and add to that still very much the people that hold the power in the industry are white, cis, heterosexual, older men. And that's the biggest hurdle right now, is that right now we're in the beginnings of, yes, we have more diversity in terms of the acting side. That's beautiful. However, we're starting to now see more writers, in the room sprinkled in, but I don't want to see just writers. I want to see directors. I want to see producers. I want to see these bigger higher ups, not only being like, oh, here's money to do this and cast a diverse act, but no, actually move aside and have a showrunner that's, part of the community, have someone that's in the higher up also giving these opportunities, because that's when you start trickling down and you start seeing more diversity, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera. And that also affects, how we treat each other on set. We're not seeing things from a capitalist, juice us all up lens. We're starting to see people with more intersections in their experiences of life, and how everything gets a structure becomes to be different. So one of the biggest hurdles right now is that still the people that have the power and controlling industry are not diverse. So yes, we're seeing more diversity, and it's beautiful, and I applaud us and I celebrate us for that. The point now is to start trickling up and then keep opening doors and whistling and being like, come on over, and then keep kind of like the monkeys from the 90s. Like we just keep like adding more and like keep, getting all the way up to the top.
Are you talking about those little plastic things? The ones
plastic monkeys that keep like, let me just hook you up, and then be like, actually come over here.
Monkeys.
Arrow monkeys. That's it.
Yeah. Until we get to the top, right? And are the ones that are making the big decisions, are the ones that are in control and in the power of telling the stories, and not just being like, please give us some money. It's like, oh, we have the money, so let's do it. That is where I'm at with that, and hoping that with that power we can start changing also policy, because we can it's very dystopian to have the most representation we've ever had on TV, and at the same time we're not allowed to say gay. We're making trans people criminals in a lot of states for just existing or like looking for healthcare. So it's really dystopian to have these two things. I do think though, and I am hopeful, like Brandon said, and like Harvey has also mentioned, that I think that yes, visibility does help and changing minds and creating sympathy and compassion. It just still sucks that a lot of people that are in control either don't watch the shows or don't believe. It's like, watch us. It's important. And like, because at the end of the day, it's just realizing that we're all human beings and seeing the humanity in every single one of us. And when you don't have visibility, it's very easy to dehumanize, and very easy then to create policy that continues to feed into that narrative. So that is why, I mean, it's just all tied together. And there's a lot of hurdles, but I think the biggest one is that we got to start getting up there.
Yeah. Okay, Brandon, I want to ask you a couple questions about both of your characters here. With Isaac, I feel like the coming out kind of played out throughout the whole season. How are you hoping or thinking it might then progress now or change with season 2?
That is a really great question. I don't know. Similar to Harvey, I asked early on when I was playing Isaac, I was like, where do you guys see them going? And they're like, oh, they had some like ideas. We absolutely had scripts, like wonderful scripts. So it was nothing actually like that experience. But I sort of was like, where I hope it goes is sort of, I think, exploring like the fun of what does it mean after 250 years to finally be a version of yourself that feels the most authentic. And so what does that mean? Like, just like the ups and downs of actual real like relationship he has is like this love interest on the show, Nigel. And I think like the fun of sort of like a new relationship after 2.5 centuries can be really, really great. And I also think that there's a lot of comedy to be mined, and so maybe even a little dark, but like to just somebody who is sort of like really struggling with this idea of what he thought he was supposed to be versus what he is, and to see all of his contemporaries celebrated and they're on like paper currency, and he's sort of now dead, trapped in a house, can't leave, can't hold, can't touch anything, can't move forward in time, can't move backward in time. And so this is all he has. Like, can he find his own personal happiness with that? And can we explore that, what like the root of that self-loathing? That's my hope. Does that sound? It sounds a little intense for a 21-minute comedy. I'm also,
that's the work. That's the work that you're doing on this character. That's so important that people are going to watch, and just thinking about, Vico and I love you on that show. It's so fantastic to watch what you do on that show, and that's important.
Have you seen the edits of us, of Guillermo and Jim being badasses like Latine?
No, what?
So someone somewhere did an edit of like Jim and Guillermo, like Jim somehow becoming a vampire and like teaming up with Guillermo, and like we both have these like badass like cuts, moments of action, and it's like, I'm here for this.
That's what I mean. Like, there's, that there was that kid who just put those together, and that's why it's important. And the work that we're doing, and and comedies, like the work that we're doing in comedies, that's open. That's how we get into people's living room, and it's like hi, can we come in for 20 minutes? And they're like, yeah, you guys are funny, I guess. And then we get into the living room, and then we show them humanity, and we show them these characters, and they fall in love with these characters, and they're like, I guess they're not so bad, Yeah. It's just like, yeah. So now you won't hate us and vote, against.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're like, I guess I'll rethink that now. And it's just like, yeah, okay, cool. Cool. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
The work that we're doing through comedy is like, again, we forget that this is comedy, but just hearing you, all speak about your characters, and just like the work that you do with it is just that's what it is. The work that you're putting into these characters and the layers, and like 250 years of coming out of the closet and finally having the courage to tell your crush who lives in a cabin across from your house that you love them, and then and Vico like being unapologetic with the character and just being in their space. And those things are important, and the work that we're doing is important. I think that we consider ourselves lucky to be in a place that we can tell a story and also change lives. It's so, I'm in awe of all of you. So I'm just going to talk.
Right back at you for sure. No, thank you. That's so sweet. It's nice to remind yourself of that too. Sometimes you get like lost in the whole thing. And that's really sweet. Thank you, Harvey. And I just feel the exact same way about you guys.
Yeah.
Brandon, the humor in the other two is so dead on and so specific. Chris and Sarah, who do most of the writing, what is it like to do a show like that, a character like Curtis, and just embrace the absurdity of it?
It's really fun. In the second season, I got a chance to write on the second season as well, and so it's fun to see it sort of come to life. And with Curtis specifically, I really like the idea that he is sort of. My one rule with him is that he loves his best friend Carrie, and that he wants the best for this person, and that whatever mental hoops he's gone through to sort of filter his life that is not as good as his, but to still get him to wake up every single day and having a really great time. I think that's sort of where you like, he makes the best of like a pile of shit. He's like, delish. And so like that is the vibe of Curtis. And I think there's a scene in this season where I, get to finally act out like my dream fantasy of being like playing a wife of somebody dying in a hospital. And I get to wear this fur coat. And it was like really, really, really fun. But it is that sort of like primal thing that I think it feels, I feel like as a queer person, I've had that in my brain since I was a kid, of like getting to play like the Toni Collette role, which I would like love to play one day type of deal. And so I think embracing the absurdity is sort of leaning into these tropes that we find ridiculous, and sort of taking a little bit of like the pigeonholeness that a lot of queer characters get to have, and just really expanding it and just being able to say, like, blow it out to its max. That's the fun. It's such a blast.
All right, let me end with a very quick group question, kind of putting you all on the spot just a little bit, but I think you can rise to the occasion. For each of you, what is your dream role that you have not done? Now, Brandon, I know you just did your dream role of woman in the hospital.
I did it within, yeah.
So is there like, preferably, I would imagine, a queer role that you have not had the chance to do? I see Vico nodding, so I'm going to start with you, Vico.
I'll make it quick. I love Star Wars. I became a fencer because I wanted to be a Jedi. I stopped eating meat because I wanted to be a Jedi, and Jedis are vegetarian. So I definitely would love to be not a Jedi, because who wants to be the good guy, but like a dark Jedi, or like a sort of, in the brink Sith who's like questioning their motives, that kind of troubled situation. But I definitely want to use the Force, and I'm really good with the lightsaber, so I'm super down to do all my stunts on that. So Star Wars.
Really out there in the universe. Okay, Javicia?
Well, first of all, just keeping in mind of our panel, that's the whole point of all of this, that everything can be rewritten to be exactly how we want it to be. So I can tell you what my dream role, and maybe no Black person has done it, but also they can also make my character gay, and they can make my character this and that, or whatever. Like, that's the whole point of art and creativity, to be able to see ourselves in any and everything we've ever wanted to be. Avatar is about to come out. These people aren't real. They created this. So why can they create that, but we can't have a gay Batwoman, or you know what I mean? Like that, we are limitless when it comes to animation, and pretty much that's more real now than it's ever been. Why can't we be limitless when it comes to everything else? So anyways, my dream role, as of now, because my dream role changes after I accomplish it, but my next dream role, I want to play Tomb Raider. That's when I'm manifesting.
You're going to do it too. Okay, Harvey.
Oh man. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'd love to do. I think like a villain, would be great to see. I always end up playing these really great characters, but I love to show, a different side. Or like a gender bender musical, like where, it's not funny girl, it's funny boy. And it's a young plus size Latina queer kid who's trying to make it in the business, and then climbs his way to a Broadway show.
Yeah. I know exactly that like hits so deep. I want to see that right now.
Yeah.
I will. Buying my I'm gonna Venmo you $15 for the ticket.
We open in Poughkeepsie, so.
Oh, great.
Brandon, what's yours?
I would love to just any queer character that enters the I think James Bond universe would be pretty cool. To just see like James Bond, I don't know, fuck me. I'm just kidding. Just to see.
I'll Venmo you $20 right now.
Okay. Yes, it's an IMAX, so it's $20.
Right.
So
who's James Bond, Brandon, in that scenario?
Who's the James Bond? Who's my dream? My dream. Well, that's Idris Elba is going to be it.
Maybe you could play the villain and then like somehow fall in love. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate you and love you, and it's like.
Exactly. I remember like when Javier Bardem was in Skyfall, his character was kind of queer, and I was like, just wanted them to push it a little bit further, because it was like, how cool to see like a queer villain like that has, oh my God. And you felt like such an attraction between the two of them. Anyway, that would be it. Or to just play some like deranged newscaster. Like a deranged Anderson Cooper.
Guys, I'm here for all of this, and I expect to see all of these projects in the year 2024. So
this is getting sent around, right? This is going to all the networks and all the studios.
This is the pitch meeting right now.
This is the pitch meeting, right.
I was happy to help facilitate that. All of you, Javicia, Vico, Brandon, Harvey, what a pleasure to spend some time with all of you on this panel. I just really, really appreciate your time. And I want to tell everyone out there watching that you should visit the IMDb and IMDb Pro pages of all of our panelists today and learn more about their careers. And I also want to wish happy 20th anniversary to IMDb Pro, the essential resource for entertainment industry professionals to continue to advance their career. So thank you to Outfest, thank you to IMDb and IMDb Pro for having us all, and thanks so much to all of you for being here.
Thank you. Long live the star.
Thanks for watching, everybody.